Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we are diving into something truly mind-bending. I mean, what if I told you that the absolute most advanced, sophisticated blueprint for cognitive psychology didn't actually come out of some sterile modern research lab at Stanford or MIT? What if it wasn't published in last week's peer-reviewed journal? What if, instead, this definitive guide to human consciousness was literally etched into antiquity, thousands of years before the very first psychology textbook was ever even printed? Well, today, we're exploring an ancient text that is going to completely upend our established timeline of human psychology and self-awareness. Look, we're living in a pretty undeniable crisis of stress, anxiety, and identity confusion right now. We find ourselves endlessly doom-scrolling, constantly searching for new therapies, downloading the latest meditation apps, and just trying desperately to find some new way to calm our racing minds. But what if the ultimate mental health manual, the definitive guide to understanding exactly how your brain processes reality and generates anxiety, is actually thousands of years old? We are going to look at an incredibly profound ancient analytical framework called the Vibhanga and discover how it completely maps onto the modern science of the mind, offering solutions we're genuinely only just now rediscovering. Section 1. The Ancient Mind Manual. Okay, let's dive right into this. So the text we're focusing on today is known as the Vibhanga, which is the second book of a massive ancient collection of Theravada Buddhist scriptures called the Abhidhamma Pitaka. Now, to be clear, we aren't looking at this as a religious doctrine today, we're examining it strictly through the lens of cognitive science. The word Vibhanga essentially translates to classifying, separating, or analyzing reality systematically. And scholars today view this text not just as religious dogma, but as a rigorous empirical science of the mind. It's this profound work of epistemology focused entirely on discovering the ultimate truth of the universe. And it does this in a radically different way, by completely bypassing the concept of a self or an ego, and instead treating the human experience strictly as raw, observable data. Section 2. Disassembling the self. And this brilliantly illustrates how this ancient manual actually works. It really helps to think about how we study complex machines today. Think of the Vibhanga as a complete tech teardown of human consciousness. The very first book in this ancient collection, the Dhamma, is all about assembling the mind, putting the whole psychological universe together into a cohesive system, kind of like building a custom computer from scratch. But the Vibhanga? It does the exact opposite. It takes that fully assembled universe and meticulously takes it apart, piece by piece, right down to the motherboard. It unplugs the sensory inputs, removes the memory drives, and inspects the wiring, all to completely destroy the illusion of the ego. So how does it execute this teardown? Well, it systematically chops the mind up into 18 highly specific areas, which function exactly like cognitive models do in modern psychology. We start with things like the Khandha 5, which are the 5 aggregates, and then move through sense bases, elements, mindfulness, and knowledge. To put this into perspective, the sense bases category isn't just some basic biological checklist, like, okay, yep, I have eyes and ears. No, it's a detailed mechanistic breakdown of exactly how a raw visual input hits the eye, interacts with your consciousness, and then blossoms into a complex thought or emotion. Modern scholars look at this highly structured architecture and they literally see an ancient step-by-step flowchart of how human intelligence and perception actually develop in real time. The core mechanism here, especially when dismantling those 5 aggregates, is to prove that human life is merely a continuous stream of physical and mental phenomena that are just arising and passing away. The text basically argues that there is no immortal core. There's no permanent self sitting behind your eyes, pulling the levers like a tiny pilot in a mech suit. It's just a stream of data. Think of it like a river, right? From a distance, a river looks like one solid, permanent thing. But when you get up close, you realize it's actually just a constantly moving stream of completely different drops of water. This ancient concept that you aren't a fixed entity, but rather an ongoing process, is incredibly close to modern phenomenology and contemporary cognitive psychology. Section 3. The 3D Analytical Engine. Okay, so how does this ancient text process all of this psychological data? Well, it uses a strict, rigorous algorithm that scholars call a 3D analytical method. Let's use a real-world example to see how this flowchart works. Imagine you're eating an apple. Step 1 is Sutanta, which is analyzing that experience using everyday common language. You might simply say, I am eating a delicious apple. But step 2, Abhidhamma, forces you to translate that experience into the language of ultimate truth. So it strips away the I and the apple and views it merely as physical matter making contact with a taste receptor, generating a temporary pleasant sensation. Finally, step 3 is Pañcakkhandha,
where that raw data is subjected to strict, interrogative, logical categorization. It asks, is this sensation wholesome, unwholesome, or neutral? It is quite literally an ancient prototype for scientific analysis and cognitive modeling.
Section 4. Anticipating modern psychology. Now, what's really interesting here is the massive plot twist we find when we bring this ancient manual into the 21st century. Modern science isn't inventing these frameworks. We are literally just now catching up to them. Long before Sigmund Freud was analyzing dreams in Vienna, the Vibhanga outlined a concept called Bhavanga Chitta. This was a highly structured system explaining an underlying mental current where the mind stores experiences and generates human behavior, operating just below our conscious awareness. That's a direct mirror to Freud's concept of the subconscious. Furthermore, the analysis of the Khandha 5, breaking down your thoughts and physical sensations to prove they aren't you, well, that is the exact same mechanical foundation used in modern cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. And listen, this isn't just some intellectual exercise or a neat historical coincidence. These exact ancient mechanisms of dismantling the self are actively used in clinical settings today. Mindfulness-based therapies and CBT drawn directly from these concepts effectively reduce stress and combat modern anxiety. By training the brain to observe thoughts as temporary, passing weather rather than a permanent, fixed identity, patients can successfully break the cycle of rumination. This approach has actually been clinically proven to prevent the relapse of depression. We are finding out that this ancient technology, this thousands-of-year-old operating system update for the human brain, genuinely, functionally works.
Section 5. The physical proof.
Now, you might be wondering at this point, is this all just abstract philosophy floating around in history? Well, let's ground this in tangible physical reality. Archaeologists actually found 5th century Pali inscriptions carved into octagonal stone pillars in Chai Nat Province, Thailand. And these aren't just random religious carvings either. They are direct, highly technical texts from a famous commentary on the Vibhanga, written by the great 5th century Sri Lankan scholar Buddhist. Finding these specific analytical texts etched in stone is absolutely amazing because it was the ancient equivalent of exporting highly advanced technology. It proves this wasn't just a localized religion spreading, it was a highly valued empirical science of the mind being actively exported, traded, and studied across major empires and trade routes.
Section 6. The Map of Liberation. So, the crucial point is, why do all this? Why do all this work to disassemble the self and categorize our sensory inputs? Scholars broadly agree that the Vibhanga is not just some theoretical study. It's actually referred to as a map of liberation. It was originally designed as an active, practical tool for vipassana, or insight meditation. By running this mental algorithm on your own brain, separating realities and genuinely seeing the impermanence of everything, the practitioner fundamentally rewires their relationship with pain and desire, completely extinguishing suffering. It's a pragmatic, user-tested guide to freeing the mind.
We live in an era that is just totally overwhelmed by stress, searching desperately for answers to our modern mental health crises. Yet, right here is an absolute beacon of mental science. We aren't just dealing with old religious doctrines. We are looking at a 2,000-year-old psychological masterclass, an incredibly precise map drafted thousands of years ago, offering a proven, empirical way out of human suffering. So I leave you with this final thought. How will you use this 2,000-year-old map to navigate your own modern anxieties? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this completely changes how you view your own mind.